Hi, so we're live and I'm back. We were here earlier for the verdict and we were, I think, pleasantly surprised to hear that Derek Chauvin was convicted on all 3 counts that he was charged with. I went ahead and found some news clips. Most of them, I think, had to do with the trial as far as verdict reactions. There was plenty of stuff to look through. However, as I was looking through it, I was noticing that, a lot of the same stuff was being reported, and I kind of didn't want to make everyone like sit here and just be hearing the same stuff, over and over. So what I ended up doing as far as reactions go is I selected videos, news clips of, reactions from George Floyd's family or people that were involved in the trial. So if it was like witness, that was up there, I went ahead and grabbed them and that kind of thing. But as far as like Ben Crump's reaction, Nancy Pelosi's reaction, I think I saw like the Reverend's reaction too, and I thought this is gonna make a really long live of hearing like the same stuff over and over again, which I didn't want to do that. So I figure while we let people get into the room or come into the room, I would play a video, and this was from this morning. So this was before anybody even knew that the verdict was going to come out today. So they're going to just kind of talk about the trial and just some highlights, that kind of thing. So we'll start there and then we'll continue forward. And I also decided to add some clips of some other things that happened today. I just figured that, we would just kind of start moving towards talking about other topics too. And I figured now would be a good time to do that. So the first video that we're going to watch is courtesy of WCCO CBS Minnesota. And again, this is before the verdict came out. This was from this morning. It's called Esme Murphy Recaps Derek Chauvin's Trial Ahead of Verdict.
Esme has covered so many trials in her career at WCCO, and we knew the facts of this trial were going to make this unlike any other. But Esme, the COVID restrictions that the court has been under has changed so much about this trial. First of all, the fact that we all get to see it for our viewers on CBSN watching around the country. Normally in Minnesota, we don't have cameras in a criminal courtroom.
Right.
And so normally we wouldn't be able to see any of this. The fact we've been able to see it all has been remarkable. But Esme, everything about the way the verdict is read is going to be different, again, because people aren't allowed into the government center that's behind you.
Right. Well, I think the actual reading of the verdict will be very much the same in the courtroom. What is different, of course, is the fact that this is televised, and this is the first trial in Minnesota history to be televised. And I think it's been a success. I was actually in the courtroom a couple of days and actually got to talk to the judge before court started. It was actually the last time I was there was the day of opening statements. And he kind of said, I think this is going pretty well. And by that, he meant this experiment with, cameras in the courtroom. And I said, I think it's going very well. People that I've talked to who've been watching it, I think really appreciate that they can see this important trial. This trial matters. What happened to George Floyd matters. What happens with this jury matters. And people have got to see it. And you mentioned the bystanders. I think it was really extraordinary that we got to see those bystanders because I thought they were incredible. They did such a good job coming to court, which is, goodness knows, intimidating, and getting up there and telling their truth and explaining what happened. And what was so remarkable about them is that, I've said before, when you sometimes have 6 people watch a traffic accident, you'll get 6 versions of what happened. They really spoke with one voice. They all really talked about the horror they felt, and it was still very raw. And they also talked about the guilt they felt that they could have done something, or they thought they could have done something, or they should have done more, or done something to help George Floyd.
Boy, Esme, that's something I'll never forget.
Hi, Sarah Brown. Thank you so much for being here. We just got started, so you're just in time. Hello, Lisa. Thank you so much for stopping by. And Punisher J Gaming, as always, much love. let's continue watching. Oh yeah, this is from earlier today. This was from this morning, so this was before the verdict. So I just figured I'd play this while I let people come into the room since I just started.
At witness after witness testifying how they felt the guilt that they should have intervened. From Darnella Frazier, who took that video that went viral here and around the world, to the 911 dispatcher, on and on, all of those witnesses. Boy, it breaks your heart, you know?
It really does. And then you even go to people who were sort of not some of the major eyewitnesses. Christopher Martin, who was the clerk. He's 19 years old right now, which means he would have been 18. He was in high school, after school job. He's told by his boss that if he collects and receives any fake bills, it's going to get docked out of his salary. And he sees that it's a fake bill. Actually, I thought it was kind of looked like a pretty good bill to me. I mean, he was able to recognize that it was a counterfeit bill. And he said that he feels guilty. And they asked him why. The prosecutor asked, why do you feel guilt? And he said, because if I hadn't reported this, none of this would have happened. It's not that kid's fault.
Right.
It's not that kid's fault. But it was just so telling to know that that's been on him all this time.
You know, we know from talking to jurors in other major cases, and here in Minnesota, the case of Officer Muhammad Noor was a very major case. The first time a police officer was convicted of murder in one of these deaths in police custody. And in that case, the jury also took about 10 hours, similar deliberation time, but a case, again, that was not televised, and we didn't get to see and get to know all of the witnesses. And frankly, there were fewer witnesses. That was such a different scenario. That was a more typical police interaction where the defense was more along the lines of making a split-second decision.
Right. Absolutely split-second decision. And you also had Officer Noor testify in that case. And Officer Noor, that was the case where he made a split-second decision. He heard a noise from outside the squad car. He took his weapon and he fired it across his partner's, chest, and he killed Justine Ruszczyk-Damon. And he testified about that. He testified that he was fearful. You saw what he was going through, and he was really very good on the stand. He did not get the acquittal that he wanted, but you did get his testimony. And that's what you get in some of these split-second decision cases. You get the officer testifying to explain what was going on. Derek Chauvin didn't do that. And I think that there are a lot of questions about why he didn't do that. I think he would have had a very tough time under cross-examination. These prosecutors are very, very good. And I think that they really would have gone after him tremendously. But it is interesting. 10 hours is about the same time. That, of course, that trial ended with a conviction on third-degree murder. So we will see. That is one of the charges that Derek Chauvin is facing.
All right. Esme Murphy, thank you.
All right, so that video was, be quiet. Sorry about that. But that video was from earlier, and since then we have officially, have a conviction for Derek Chauvin. So we'll go ahead and continue on watching these clips. So they're pretty much going to be in order from, earlier this afternoon to more recently. And I kind of mixed them up a little bit as far as the trial news clips go, and then the other stuff that I selected for today. So the next video that we're going to watch is courtesy of Inside Edition, and it's called Derek Chauvin Convicted of Murder of George Floyd.
The verdict is in. Guilty on all counts.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. The third-degree murder, find the defendant guilty. Second-degree manslaughter, guilty.
There was no reaction from Derek Chauvin as he heard his fate. His bail was immediately revoked, and he was handcuffed and led to jail to await sentencing. Outside the court, the crowd celebrated the historic verdict. This is the scene outside the courthouse, guilty on all 3 charges, and we have a mass of people celebrating. There's music blasting, and you can actually see people here breathing a sigh of relief.
And we started hearing horns honking. I think you felt jaws dropping.
I am so very thankful that perhaps we will see real change.
This is a powerful moment in American history that we're watching unfold right now.
I know he's here with us too. Floyd's here, Dante's here.
I spoke with George Floyd's girlfriend, Courtney Ross, outside the courthouse.
I think it's a start in bringing justice to so many of the families that haven't received justice yet. And so that's what it will begin to bring. And it'll bring change for the future.
Gail King described the white-knuckle tension.
I wanted to go to see George Floyd Square. We've seen it on the news. I was very curious. I was hoping to talk to some people there. And we have 2 security people with us, and they said, nope, you can't go there now. It's very dicey.
The jury began deliberations at 4 p.m. local time Monday and continued until 8 p.m. last night. They resumed work today at 8 a.m. Even President Biden was on verdict watch and indicated he hoped the jury would vote guilty.
I'm praying the verdict is the right verdict, which is, I think it's overwhelming in my view. I wouldn't say that unless the jury was sequestered now.
There was an immediate backlash over the president's remark.
It's very unusual for a president of the United States to weigh in at all.
I find that somewhat surprising, Caitlin, especially because the White House has been really careful in their public commentary on this.
And it came up at the White House briefing.
No, there are worries about unrest. Is there now concern that the president's words could add to that if the, quote, right verdict is not reached?
Regardless of the outcome, the president has consistently called for peace.
George Floyd's brother said the president actually called him.
He knows how it is to lose a family member, and he knows the process of what we're going through. So he was just letting us know that he was praying for us.
Tension mounted across America as the nation waited to hear the jury's decision. And then this.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
Now, if you remember, Philonis Floyd was the brother of George Floyd that took the stand and testified as a spark of life witness, where he spoke about George Floyd and talked about what he was like when he was younger. He went to school and he helped out at home with his mom. He loved his mom a lot. They loved each other. It was really, really tough to watch him take the stand. But I'm glad he did it. I hope it helped him get closure, or at least some of it. The next video we're going to watch is called Chauvin Sentencing to be in 8 weeks, and that's going to be courtesy of CNBC television. Back 1 second.
Be tried, but I want to speak briefly about sentencing. The guidelines, can you impose this sentence concurrently? And in addition, can you go outside the guidelines for someone who has no priors? In other words, murder 2 carries with it the maximum possibility of 40 years in prison. Murder 3, 25 years in prison. Man 2, 10 years in prison. Can you add them all up and shake, or no?
Chef, that's a great question. No, you cannot add these up because they're all based on the exact same conduct. And that's something that I thought was going to be confusing for the jury. Apparently it wasn't when they went back there and looked at the charge. But when you charge someone with different offenses that are all based on the exact same conduct, no, those cannot be sentenced back to back to back. He can't even actually have multiple convictions. That's confusing. The jury can find you guilty of all 3. But Judge Cahill will sentence him on one of those offenses. It'll be the highest offense, the second-degree murder conviction. With regard to the exact sentence that Cahill gives, as a general rule, and this is almost fundamental, judges will go down from the sentencing guidelines sometimes, but they will not go up. So part of what Judge Cahill will consider is not only Derek Chauvin and what he did to George Floyd, but also Derek Chauvin compared to other officers who've been convicted of comparable crimes. And so I think that we should expect to see something that is consistent with the presumptive sentencing guideline in this case.
Regarding sentencing, Arthur, will there be hearings in the way that there often are at sentencings, or is this something that the judge will? Oftentimes, in court proceedings, you save the character witnesses. For instance, Philonise Floyd, George Floyd's brother, you would save that for the sentencing phase. But in Minnesota, they allow that testimony during the case in chief.
So what you're talking about, Shepard, usually happens in death penalty cases where the jury's going to decide whether there's a death penalty. Here, if you remember, after summations, there was a whole argument, not an argument, but a proceeding with the judge, and he asked Mr. Nelson to basically what's called allocute defendant Chauvin about a Blakely hearing. And that means they could have had a hearing about whether the aggravated sentencing should come into play. But instead, they waived that hearing, and now the judge is going to make that decision as to whether or not there are enough aggravating factors so he should be sentenced at the higher guidelines. And at the end of today's proceedings, if you heard, the judge set the schedule. I believe in 1 week, the prosecutor's papers are due, then the defense has some time to respond, then the judge's decision will come down, and then the sentencing will be 8 weeks down the road. So it's going to be, from my understanding, from what we heard today from the judge, it's all going to be done on papers until the sentence is actually handed down by the judge.
I'll be following the trial still between now and sentencing. If I see anything, relevant or anything that lets me think that it could lead towards, one way or the other as far as the sentencing goes, I'll add it to any future live streams. But I think that for sure I want to try to watch all of the sentencing, and then I guess that would be it. And then it'll probably just be news clips every once in a while of Derek Chauvin trying to appeal the verdict. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's go ahead and watch this next video. It's called Who Are the Jurors Who Convicted Derek Chauvin? And this is courtesy of Insight Edition. And they're not going to reveal themselves. This is just going to give you some of their statistics and that kind of a thing.
Hi, honey. Hi. Who's a good boy?
1 second while I skip this ad.
When they were chosen for the Chauvin case, the men and women asked about media coverage and the intense interest in the case's outcome, and each said they could put that aside and focus on the facts. But as Les Trent reports, that didn't eliminate the pressure of their task.
The jury that decided Derek Chauvin's fate was made up of 5 men and 7 women. 4 are black, 6 white, 2 identify as multiracial. We actually heard from them during jury selection, a first in a televised trial.
Juror number 1, we're going to have you come right up here.
Juror number 2, a chemist, has no love for Black Lives Matter.
I support the message that every life should matter equally.
For 3 weeks, they sat physically distanced in the courtroom, listening to the 45 witnesses. Reporters scrutinizing their every move.
I think they have had a jury that has really paid close attention and been engaged the whole time. There was only a day where there was a little bit of fidgeting going on, but for the most part, they have really been engaging.
So what's it like to sit in deliberation, knowing the entire world is watching?
It's a lot of pressure.
Definitely.
This woman, who has asked that she not be named, sat on the jury of the Harvey Weinstein trial last year that found the disgraced movie mogul guilty of rape and sexual assault.
What was it like inside that jury room?
Nerve-wracking. The beginning stage, you're not allowed to talk about it. So now that we were allowed to speak about it, everyone all at once, I feel this way, I feel that way, this, and did you hear that?
All rise for the jury.
Today, the world watched as the Derek Chauvin jurors filed in. Everyone in the courtroom rose.
Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict.
Nobody knows what drama took place during the 10 hours of deliberations, but judging by the reaction outside the court, they seem to have gotten it right.
As a juror, there's a pressure to...
There's always time to upset the crowd too. Remember, we have sentencing coming up, and if it doesn't go quote unquote the right way, stuff could still happen. I'm really glad though that it doesn't look like there's rioting anyways, because there's always going to be that difference of opinion where people are still stuck on that it happened in the first place. There's still people that are upset even though things seem to be going in the right direction for now.
to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you imagine that is like for the jurors in this particular case?
Collectively, they have to make a decision that they're going to be able to walk out of their homes and be proud of. You have to stand firm and you have to be confident in the decision that you're making in this case, because it is a huge case. It really is.
Okay, now let's go ahead and continue on. Let me erase this first before I play it again. All right, the next video is called Activist on Chauvin Verdict. Quote, "We need to continue holding officers accountable," and this is courtesy of CBS News. Now, this is the one exception that I made as far as getting reactions of people that, you know, were only a part of the trial or family members of George Floyd. I watched this clip and I felt like he had a lot of interesting things to say. He had a lot of knowledge about officer involved situations and things like that. I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't name him because apparently he is an activist. So I'm not sure if he's an anonymous activist or why they left his name out of it. But I think he has a future in what he's doing right now. You'll see what I mean.
It's the worst when nothing works. With Canva,
Skip ad. 1 second.
It's easy.
Jeff Pegues is with an activist now that he met some years ago after the police killing of Michael Brown. That was in Ferguson, Missouri. Jeff?
Yeah, Gil, this is Jamal Green, and I think his perspective is important because I don't know if there's anyone under the age of 30 in this country who knows more about police community relations than this young man who's now 25. He lives in Chicago, but now he travels the country discussing these issues. And you were just telling me a few minutes ago that, I don't know, you're surprised that he was found guilty on all of these counts. Why are you surprised, given your experience learning about these issues, studying these issues, and being an activist when it comes to these issues?
Well, this isn't something that we see on a day-to-day basis with these cases. The last time I seen people cheering like this, it was in Chicago. I was one of the organizers in the Laquan McDonald movement, and Jason Van Dyke was one of the first officer in Chicago. So
Laquan
we don't see
McDonald
it.
shot 16 times on the streets of Chicago.
Yeah.
And it took about a year for the video of the shooting to come out.
Yep.
And that's when the unrest, if you will, began, and the calls for change began as well.
Yep, he's one of the first officers in Illinois to be held accountable. So to see this as one of the first officers in Minnesota, I'm happy, I'm shocked, but we need to continue holding officers accountable. But we need real legislative change in this country and really look at how we can move the needle, because this can't keep happening. This cannot be our reality each and every day. Bracing for videos and bracing for if a jury or judge is going to find an officer guilty.
You know, I think a lot of people, when they hear the celebrations, when they hear some of the statements made about Derek Chauvin, they think that, or they jump to the conclusion that this is about community versus cops.
Right.
That's not what this is about. If you talk to Jamal Green, because he has family members who are police officers.
Right.
We've talked in the past about how it's mostly about weeding the bad cops out of the system.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do. So it has been so much that had happened over the years that this system is so corrupt that how do you even figure out where to start with that? We really got to step back and rethink public safety as a whole.
Jamal Green, thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
It always beats me right before I hit pause. It switches to the next video. This is probably how I end up getting confused. But yes, I felt a lot of what he was saying. I hope you agree with me as far as police officers needing to be held accountable more often for the way some of these arrests are going down. It's unacceptable. It's heartbreaking that children are afraid to walk in certain neighborhoods or try to do normal people things because they're going to be treated differently because of what's happening to the adults in this country. So for now, we're going to take a break on the Derek Chauvin trial, and I went ahead and added some other clips that I found. And this first one is called Opelousas. I don't know where that is. Police arrest deputy marshal for malfeasance in office, and this is courtesy of KATC. And I picked it because, first of all, malfeasance. I didn't know what that meant. I'll be honest. I had that got my curiosity at the beginning, but then once I saw the video and I saw exactly what was going on, and the video is narrated, so I won't have to be interjecting as much. So let's go ahead and watch it.
Okay, this is him coming in. This is a gentleman that's the victim in this incident. You can see he's removing the contents from his pockets to have scanned through the metal detector, which don't make it at that time. He comes on the opposite side of the machine. While this guy is recording his temperature, you can see clearly that it was some activity going on right here with the marshal and the guy's belongings. As he come back around this side, he brings the items back, and you can see here that there's money dangling from his hand. And you're gonna see he's gonna make a transfer from the right hand to the left hand. At this time, that's what he's doing. He's securing that whatever the U.S. currency in his pocket. And he walks away.
Now that's foul. He stole from the guy right in front of his face. So I guess malfeasance means theft, robbery. I could try to define it exactly what it is, just so that, I don't know, for my own edification, I guess. Sorry if my keyboard is too loud. It's on purpose loud. I should probably get a quiet one. But okay, it says malfeasance is a noun, and it's wrongdoing, especially by a public official. So yeah, that sounds accurate to the situation. So let's go ahead and continue on to the next clip. It's having to do with UFOs, whoever's into that. It's called UFOs. A retired Navy commander describes his sighting in 2004, the overview. And this is courtesy of NBC News.
These 3 videos released by the Department of Defense have changed the way many people see what we can't explain.
The moment you mention UFO, immediately what comes to mind are little green men, tinfoil hats. That's not at all what we're dealing with.
In 2004, off the coast of California, an F-18 Super Hornet training exercise was suddenly interrupted by a call over the radio that would come to define Commander David Fravor's career.
You know, there's certain things in your life where you just remember in vivid detail what happened. And that's one of them, because it's honestly the strangest, most obscure thing I've ever seen flying.
Fravor, the commanding officer of the Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 41, and another F-18 scrambled to check out an unusual radar blip 80 miles off the coast.
So as we're looking around, the backseater in the other airplane comes up and says, "Hey, Skipper, do you see?" And before he says it, I'm like, "Dude, do you see that?" As soon as we look down, we see the white water, and then we see this little white tic-tac. It's pointing north-south, and it's just going forward, back, left, right.
It's just bouncing around?
Yeah, like a ping pong ball.
What was its shape? What was its... what did it look like it was made out of?
Like a perfectly smooth white tic-tac. Or for people that need a bigger visualization, a giant propane tank.
Fravor says the F-18s began circling, Fravor at 20,000 feet, and the so-called tic-tac only about 50 feet above the surface of the water.
And I say, "Hey, I'm going to go check this thing out." And the other pilot stays and says, "Hey, I'm going to stay up high." And then it starts coming up at us. We call it two-circle fight, but it's coming up, I'm coming down. So it literally is aware we're there. There's no doubt, because it mirrored me. So here it is. I cut across, and I get to about half mile of it, so I'm about halfway across the circle. As it gets in front of me, it just goes poof, and it's gone. And it's gone like that fast.
What do you mean, poof, it's gone?
I mean exactly that. Like, it's 1 minute it's there, and the next second it's like magic trick. So I asked the other airplane, I said, hey, do you guys see that? And they're like, it's gone. It just disappeared.
When you saw this kind of performance, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
What the hell was that?
Once back on the carrier, Fravor's team told the next crew what had happened, and that crew took off ready to capture something on camera. And this is what they saw.
I guess the biggest question is, what do you think it is?
I honestly don't know. I don't think that we have developed that technology. I don't think we developed it on this planet. We still, to this day, have no idea what it was, what we saw, what we chased, what we engaged. But it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've heard a lot of different theories that our technology is from the aliens. And he's saying that we don't have that technology, but what if we do? What's this? Yeah, I found Black and Bougie. I found some clips while I was looking at clips from the Derek Chauvin verdict today, because a lot of it was a lot of repeated information, and I just wanted to like kind of put in some other stuff like in between. So I just covered a little bit of the Derek Chauvin verdict if you want to go back into the video a little bit, but I have a little bit more also later on if you want to stick around.
A report from that incident eventually made its way to the Pentagon and crossed the desk of Luis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
In essence, what that program was an investigatory body looking at what we call the UAP, probably in the vernacular, it's better known as the UFO phenomenon. The bottom line here is that over the past several decades,
Guerrilla warfare, I saw that. In fact, I want to say, was it last week? I was making a playlist of just like other news clips, kind of like this, and I saw that and I was going to include it, but then I guess I just ended up focusing on the Derek Chauvin trial. I want to say I still have that playlist. If I do, I'll bring up that clip whenever I have a chance.
we in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community have been noticing things in our airspace that don't have wings, they don't have cockpits, they don't have even an obvious sign of propulsion like an engine, and yet still they're able to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity.
In 2020, the Pentagon declassified 3 videos, the Tic Tac video and 2 others filmed on the East Coast in January of 2015. Other countries have made similar public disclosures. Also in 2004, the Mexican Air Force confirmed this video was shot by one of their pilots near the coast of Baja California. In 2014, the helicopter from the Chilean Navy locked onto an unidentified object emitting what appeared to be some sort of gas or vapor. Both governments have said they investigated but couldn't determine what the objects were. To those like science writer Sarah Scholes, clipped black and white videos always leave a lot to the imagination.
To me, the most interesting thing about the videos is how little information is in them. All we have are these, 30.
So I went ahead and went back a little bit here. I just wanted to point out that I guess she's the author of a book called They're Already Here. I'm interested in that. I'm probably going to write it down so I could check it out. I hope this stops buffering soon. There we go.
Is in them. All we have are these, 30 seconds or a minute of something totally decontextualized. And so everybody kind of gets to think whatever they want to think about them because we don't actually have enough information to form any kind of conclusion, which is UFO's favorite space to live in, the muddy, fuzzy space.
But will 2021 be the year all of that changes because of COVID-19?
Hidden among the many pages of the COVID-19 bill is this mandate to produce a report on unidentified aerial phenomena. What's different this time is that the military is kind of talking about them very explicitly in terms of threats. It's not like the Pentagon's deal to call things aliens, but that's kind of the angle they're coming from.
If there is a foreign adversary, let's say Russian or China or anybody else, who happens to have this technology and they've had it for decades, and we in the United States have somehow been strategically leapfrogged in our technology, we've got a big problem on our hands.
Officially, the clause attached to December's COVID-19 relief bill, added by the Senate Intelligence Committee, calls for the military and FBI to brief committee members on what they know about UAPs within 180 days of the bill's passing. The kind of top-level briefings Elizondo says he's given before.
The three options are, is it our technology? Is it for an adversarial technology or someone else's technology? Or is it something completely different? We're 99% sure it's not foreign adversarial technology. So that only leaves really one other option. It's someone or something else.
Are these three videos the only videos that you know of that the United States government has that shows unidentified aerial phenomenon?
No, absolutely not. These are probably some of the least compelling videos. Some cases, you know, we've seen these things 50 feet away from the cockpit.
And when you're talking about something that is 50 feet away, I mean, what could they tell from being 50 feet away?
With all due respect, Gotti, I no longer work for the United States government in that capacity. So I want to be clear that I don't want to speak on behalf of the U.S. government. And I also want to give the government time to do what it needs to do regarding this data.
But in science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
If the UFO field wants to be taken more seriously by scientists, I think they will kind of have to move away from the types of evidence that have historically been held up as adequate, like individual sightings, because the scientists can't really do anything with the story. They need data.
Look, I'm not a UFO guy. My background, I'm a former counterintelligence special agent. I was asked to do a job, which I did. However, it was my understanding and the conclusions that I came to, and by the way, every other person in the program unanimously came to the realization that these things are indeed real. And it's getting increasingly harder to keep the cat in the bag.
Do you ever think that you're going to see something like that again in your lifetime?
I don't know. I look up a lot. I mean, I'm not lying. On a clear night, you just look up and wonder, and I'll wander for the rest of my life. I think everyone does.
Black and Bougie, yes, I loved Unsolved Mysteries. In fact, that's what I would watch like before bed when I was in high school. I would watch that and X-Files, and it was awesome because I would get bad dreams. And I don't know, I liked it. I just always got more and more creative dreams, and it was just awesome. And I would always watch those two before bed. But nobody's going to be able to replace Robert Stack. He just had the voice that nobody else will ever be able to, match, in my opinion. Let's continue on. Oh yeah, so now we're back to watching George Floyd / Derek Chauvin coverage. And what I did is I organized a couple videos, actually 3 of them, and it's having to do with George Floyd's family's reactions. So the first one is going to be a call that the president made to the family. So we'll start with that. It's called President Joe Biden Calls George Floyd's Family Following Derek Chauvin Guilty Verdict. And that's going to be courtesy of WKYC Channel 3. And at the time, this was the only one that I could find, but there might be, fuller versions of this out by now.
Hello. Hi, how you doing?
How's Gianna doing?
Feeling better now. Nothing is going to make it all better, but at least God, now there's some justice.
Right.
And I think a John is coming. My daddy's going to change the world. He's going to start to change it now.
That's right.
Yes.
Amen. He's going to start to change it now. Yes. So you've been incredible. You're an incredible family.
Yeah, no, this was like on his to-do list. I'm pretty sure, no matter what, he was going to call so he can have like that photo op or whatever they call it.
I wish I were there, just put my arms around you. I'm standing here with Cedric. We've been talking, we've been watching every second of this, and the Vice President, all of us, and we're all so relieved. Not just one word, all three, carry on all 3 counts. And it's really important. I'm anxious to see you guys. I really am. And we're going to get a lot more done. We're going to get police. We're going to do a lot. We're going to stay at it till we get it done.
Hopefully this is the momentum for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to get passed and have you sign.
Got it. That and a lot more. Not just that, a lot more.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so I just found out about another shooting thanks to Crowned Empress. If you could still go up to the chat, I went ahead and added the links of some of my favorite channels. We all support each other, so every chance I get, I drop their link, or what, I go to their channels and drop the Cash App and try to do, work for them, and they're always there for me whenever I need them. So I feel it's really important to every once in a while to drop the link of people that support you and care about you. I need to do some research on this though, since it's a new story, but her name is, Micaiah Bryant, and it looks like she was shot by the police. She was having a fight with some other girl. She was 15 years old. She was shot in the chest 4 times because she was trying to defend herself with a knife against some girls trying to fight her at her home. Per witnesses, the cop got out of the car and started, quote unquote, bussing. No questions, no attempt to de-escalate, nothing. And get this, she's the one that called them for help. Just wow. And the update was that she had passed away. So that'll be something that I'll be looking into. Just give me some time, and maybe tomorrow or however it works out, we'll touch on it because it sounds important. Okay, so let's continue on to our playlist here. The next video is called George Floyd's Family Reacts to Derek Chauvin's Guilty Verdicts, and this is courtesy of ABC News.
George Floyd's family. We are told that Terrence Floyd also reacting to the news with emotion and joy that his brother has seen justice.
Signed juror 4-person, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, count 2. Third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty.
Come on, man.
And as we have seen in these reactions, they watched along with America with that pause in between each of the charges. And now the tears as the family recognizes that that jury listened to 3 weeks of testimony and found Derek Chauvin guilty on all of the charges. In this case, I remember back in Brooklyn, the family gathered there almost a year ago, George Floyd telling me that he was moved by the crowd. I remember him saying black, white, Asian American, Latino, that meant so much to the Floyd family, that this was a call and a conversation being driven by families in small towns and cities across America, that this was a united conversation. This is Black Lives Matter Plaza.
I mean, I felt happy for them that they got justice, and it was the best outcome considering the options. But I also felt just very sad because something truly bad, they had to lose a family member that they'll never get back, and that's what it took for something good to happen. It's just one of those bittersweet moments. I'm a big crybaby. Whenever I see something good happen to somebody, on TV or in real life, obviously, I get choked up inside, and I get sad and happy at the same time. And that's kind of what I was feeling in this situation, because they're feeling relief, that this is closer to being, to the end once he's sentenced. I personally, I don't know what everybody thinks. I don't even know if I should be saying this, but I feel like Derek Chauvin isn't going to stick around for the sentencing, especially if it's going to be 8 weeks from now. He's a cop in jail that killed George Floyd. I mean, he had it rough already just being a cop. in jail, and now he's that guy. I mean, I can't even imagine, you know, the guards wanting to be on his side. And he's probably like the most hated man in the world right now. And I just wouldn't be surprised if he just decides to check out and not deal with what's coming. Hi, Tyrant, Spain, TDOA. Thank you so much for stopping by. I went ahead and left the links to, you know, yours and some other YouTube channels. Go ahead and subscribe to those. Sometimes we all get together at each other's channels and just say hi, hit the like whenever you can. Let's go ahead and continue on with this playlist. I got 12 videos to go. It's going to be a, you know, more or less short live compared to sitting through 5-6 hours of court, but we're here. So the next video is called George Floyd's Family Reacts to Chauvin's Guilty Verdict, and this is courtesy of KPRC to Click to Houston. And this isn't the clip that we just saw. Apparently the family did an interview after that, and that's what this is.
Good evening, Chris. The family gathering here to be together, all together, to hear this verdict. And I want to start off with George's sister, LaTanya. LaTanya, tell us how you felt the moment you heard the verdict come down.
Thank you. It was the most exciting news I have ever heard in my life. I was so happy. I mean, we almost wrestled each other now. I was so happy. It just melted my heart. You know, that's baby brother. I mean, and I love him and miss him so much. Oh God, words can't express it. They're only gonna start me crying again. I'm telling you, I ain't gonna do it. I am so happy. I wasn't expecting 3, so that's what we wanted, and we got it.
How did you feel seeing Derek Chauvin escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs?
I wanted to tap dance because, like I said to y'all before, he walked out in handcuffs. You know, this is calm. You know, he walked out. My brother couldn't get up. He couldn't come out of his cuffs. He couldn't do nothing. You know, he naturally suffered. You know, he suffered. You know, he's not enduring that kind of pain. You know, he still has his life. Our uncle brother is gone.
We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary, and you were saying you thought it might be a tough month, but you also told me when we spoke last week that you thought there might be happiness in May because of what you were expecting to be a positive verdict.
Yeah, absolutely. I believed in it. I held on to it. I wasn't gonna let it go. None of us was. And it's done. It's done. It is done. The good, the bad, and the ugly is over. Like I said, I'm gonna pray for him, though.
What do you want to say to him?
You know, the only thing I'm gonna say to him, why? Why? You know, why? What were you thinking? What were you doing? I mean, you know, why you take my little brother? You know, what?
Brooke, it was almost a year ago that you gave this very moving eulogy to your uncle that people are still talking about. How do you feel now?
I feel more calm. At first, I was very angry, frustrated inside. I still feel those emotions because, yes, we have gotten justice, but is he here with us? So it's just an overwhelming feeling. That's all.
And Bianca, when I talked to you last week, you said that you were going to get justice for your uncle.
We got justice. I honestly thought it would just be manslaughter, maybe 1 charge, and the rest he would be innocent on. But to get 3 guilty, it's a wonderful feeling. You know, I'm happy. He's accountable for he's accountable for what he did, and justice has been served. And this right here is the victory that for us.
There's a victory left.
I know that you said you wanted to thank all of the people who were marching in the middle of the pandemic last summer. And
I mean, Benjamin Trump, Tony Romanucci, my whole entire family, all the people all over the world, because they got in there, you know. They came out night and day without any sleep, something, you know. That was people out there with no food to eat. They just, their nutrition was George Floyd. George Floyd. Every day, they stood tall. And we didn't want to fight. We all wanted to fight. We all wanted to fight. And oh boy.
Push through like we always do.
All my family, I'm looking at Al Sharp, you know, they were there. They were right there. They didn't deviate. The protesters out there, they didn't deviate. There's people that slept in George Floyd Square. You know, when they heard the verdict, did you see them throwing money everywhere? They were throwing money all over. You know, they didn't know him, but they felt him. They heard about him. They know his spirit. He's a gentle giant, and they love him, just like we love him.
What do you say to the jury?
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you so much. Because without you, this wouldn't be possible. This is historic. Thank you so much.
It was just wrong. It was just wrong. I mean, I know I'll never get a chance, but maybe their resurrection or something. I don't know, because I really just want to know why. I mean, but I tell you what we're going to do. On the count of three, we're going to take that breath that he couldn't take. We're going to deep one this time. 1, 2, 3, let it in. What's his name?
George Floyd! George Floyd!
Sorry, I cut them off there. I was trying to beat the pause before it skips to the next video. But that was really heartbreaking to see. I'm really glad that they are feeling some kind of relief after everything that has happened. And I just hope that they don't get disappointed with the sentencing, or I don't know, like I just said, let's see if Derek Chauvin even decides to stick around. So the next few videos are going to be just some random news clips that I found, and then we're going to wrap up with a couple of Derek Chauvin news clips that I found right before I even went live. So this should be pretty much brand new. The next video is called 7-Year-Old Has Died After Being Shot During Filming a Rap Video in Gastonia. And this is courtesy of WCNC. Now, a word of caution, this does sound like it's going to be an emotionally tough clip to watch.
Back here locally, we're following more breaking news, this time out of Gastonia. The 7-year-old girl who was shot last week has died. This is a look at the scene on Ware Avenue near West Airline Avenue a week ago today. The suspect now facing new charges. WCNC Charlotte's Fred Shropshire over in the newsroom with the very latest on this case. Fred?
Hey there, Bill. Yeah, this is a sad update. You'll recall this happened exactly a week ago, last Tuesday night. This little girl had been fighting for her life in the hospital, but unfortunately, she has died from her injuries. I want to give you another look at where this happened. Gastonia police saying the shooting was considered accidental, and it happened during the filming of a rap music video at the home. Police arrested Jeremy Lewis 2 days after the shooting. We also learned he is the uncle of the little girl. He was initially charged with assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and discharging a firearm into an occupied property. He is now charged with second-degree murder. We know Lewis is being held in the Gaston County Jail on a $500,000 bond. Bill?
Black and Bougie, that's exactly correct. There's babies that die every day. I literally go through these news clips every single day. I have 2 accounts. Well, actually, I have a few accounts, but I have 2 of them that are, for news clips. I have every news station I could find subscribed. So my news feed is nothing but this. And every day it's all kinds of sexual assault, there's all kinds of abuse, domestic violence, elderly abuse, all kinds of stuff, and just nothing ever gets said about it. And it just really makes you want to question what the motives are behind some of these organizations that are out here allegedly to help people, and nothing's ever getting done. This next video made me mad too, and maybe you'll see why. But it's called Indian Railway Worker Risks Life to Save Child, and this is courtesy of NTV Houston. Okay, so I don't know what that looked like to you, but they were walking. Here, let me mute it so that way I can play it and talk over it. But they were walking together, and then they just started going to the right for some reason, and then the kid fell on the railway, and then watch what happens after that. And now the person that was supposed to be watching the child or with the child is over here low to the ground, not even really trying to help. And this person, who's probably not even related to either one of these people, because it says Indian Railway Worker, so he's just some, random bystander, runs from way over here, if you can see my mouse, and is going on the railroad tracks towards the train to save this child. The child was so close to losing its life. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I saw a push, but I just found it really interesting that they started like to the left of the railroad tracks, and they were walking straight, and then they just started going to the right until the child, it's like if anything, they pushed them maybe like with their body, kind of like body checked them like into the railroad. I hope there's an investigation. I mean, that video says it all to me. If I find out anything, of course, I'll let you know. Now, the next video is, having to do a little bit with like the entertainment industry. Sometimes I like to report on celebrity news every once in a while if I find it. And this one had to do with Kobe. So I went ahead and added it. It's called Vanessa Bryant Opts Not to Renew Kobe's Nike Deal, and that's going to be courtesy of CBS Los Angeles.
A long-running endorsement contract between the late Kobe Bryant and Nike is over. According to ESPN, Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's widow, opted to not renew the deal. It officially expired last week. Sources tell ESPN Bryant and his estate were frustrated with the company for limiting availability of its Kobe products, both after his 2016 retirement and in the wake of his death last year. According to CBS Sports, Bryant started his NBA career with Adidas before transitioning to Nike in 2003. KTK.
All right, so that was interesting to me because, well, the first impression that I had about that was after Kobe Bryant had passed away, Vanessa started like selling things, and she kicked her mom out of the house, and she sold the house, and like all this stuff started happening, and now she's turning down like a deal with Nike, but as she just said, it wasn't a good deal, I guess, so that's why she let it go. So I'm not too sure what, where they're headed with that one. I know she's got, I think, a lawsuit with the LA Sheriff's Department or something like that over the pictures that were distributed of the plane crash after it happened. Vanessa has her bag, she's good. Well, hopefully she does, because I've seen people go from up here to way down here in just one split decision, just a bad decision that got made or whatever. So hopefully you're right, because I hate to see people, do bad. How do you expect good things to come to you if you're hoping for bad things for other people? You know what I mean? So I'll keep up with it just because it's piqued my interest in a way. Like I said, celebrity news is something that I follow every once in a while. Now the next video clip has to do with the attacks on Asians that has been happening lately. I picked one from today. There was a few that I saw today. Actually, it was really devastating and really heartbreaking to see, because some of the Asians that are being attacked are elderly. They just don't see it coming. I don't know if you all saw, I want to say about 3 weeks ago, more or less, one elderly woman was punched in the face and she ended up kicking the crap out of the guy with a 2x4. And she was devastated. You could tell she was just completely just torn over what had happened to her. This is the country and the world we live in. And the guy was just on the stretcher with his limp wrist, like he couldn't believe like what just happened. And you never know. A lot of these people that do these things out of nowhere, maybe they just want to live in jail. Maybe, who knows, maybe they're getting pressure from people around them to get a job and make their own money, and they don't want to do that. And some people would just rather go to jail and do it that way. I don't know. I've seen it happen. Stranger things have happened before too. So we'll go ahead and watch that video next. It's called Arrest Made After Korean American Couple Punched. Olympian Threatened at Orange Park. And that's going to be courtesy of ABC 7.
And now to the man accused of berating an Olympic athlete at an Orange County park, now under arrest. He's also accused of elder abuse and a hate crime involving a Korean-American couple. Orange County reporter Jessica DeNova is live with the very latest on this investigation. Jessica?
Guys, we're at the park in Orange where police say this all happened, and it's very peaceful. There are actually plenty of people walking around here right now, and that's just what officers say this couple was doing when they say they were assaulted by this man. The officers say this isn't the first time this suspect goes after someone because of their race. Police say this man is behind 3 hate crimes this month at a park in Orange. The latest over the weekend, when officers with the Orange Police Department say 25-year-old Michael Vivona punched an elderly Asian man and woman in the face.
The couple was on one of their evening walks, as they do on a regular basis at this park, when our suspect approached unprovoked and punched both of them in the face, causing them both to fall to the ground.
Sergeant Phil McMullen says it happened near the basketball court Sunday evening at Grijalva Park. That's the same place where on April 1st, Sakura Kokumai was the victim of this angry rant filled with racist remarks and threats of violence. Knowing she can defend herself if necessary, the Team USA karate Olympian kept her cool.
I knew that I was able to handle myself with the situation by being calm. You don't want to be aggressive against somebody who's being aggressive. No, you have to remain calm and kind of keep distance. But my worry was, what if this was somebody else?
The suspect able to get away the first time around, but Sunday, others in the area stepped in to help.
It was a mix between a church group and people who were playing basketball. The report that I got is that they surrounded him. There was no force used, but they surrounded him. Fortunately, we had a police officer who was in that immediate area across the street. He was able to get there quickly and arrest our suspect.
Sergeant McMullen says it was after a lineup and questioning that police were able to add the charges of hate crime for both cases.
He made statements that he has a hate towards the Asian community, and based on what he was saying, we believe that this attack was racially motivated, and that's the only reason why he punched them.
Officers say the suspect is currently homeless, but he provided them with an address out of Corona, which he frequents. Now, as for the 79-year-old man and 80-year-old woman attacked over the weekend, we're told that they were treated here on scene, but are going to be okay. The husband with a minor scuff on his knee, but overall are going to be okay physically.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more great
Yeah, race is always going to be a hot button issue in the world. You know, it's going to be risky talking about that, or like religion, politics, even like border politics. I'm like so afraid to touch on that because it's one way or the other. There's just no way of like making everybody happy. You know what I mean? There just hasn't been any real world, real working solutions or suggestions being given out there. But I just feel like, you know, if it's going to be every man for themselves, well, then fine. But, you know, I'm not personally going to be treating people different because of their background, their religion. You know, what matters to me is that people aren't out here, you know, provoking and advocating for any kind of abuse. And that's just where I'm going to draw the line. How everybody else feels, you know, it's not my, you know, it's not my place to say that your experiences don't matter. You know, if you have certain experiences, you everybody has their own lenses and filters, you know, to see the world in. So there's going to be disagreements and things like that. And all I can do is just ask that everyone's respectful with, you know, their opinions, and no one's out here like trying to provoke or incite, you know, violence or abuse, because that's something that I don't want for my channel, and I couldn't stand by it in real life, and I'm not going to do that in cyberspace either. But everyone is entitled to their opinion as long as, you know, they're not being like abusive, I guess, or violent. That's what would get me like upset, is if someone's just purposely trying to like incite, you know. I went ahead and added a video of this animal. I don't know. I like animals, and every once in a while, some creature will end up on a surveillance camera or something like that. And I just wanted to share with you guys this magnificent looking bobcat. She's gorgeous. But anyways, the video is called "Watch: British Woman Gets Video of Mountain Lion Right Outside Home in Boulder," and this is courtesy of CBS Denver. It's a really short clip.
And check out this up-close and personal encounter with a mountain lion. A Boulder woman took this video through the window of her house. The cat prowled through the snowy yard on Monday morning, looking straight at her and her dog as it passed just inches away from the window.
So short. I mean, maybe that was sorry. Maybe that's what was, you know, the length of the video. I kind of wish they would have grabbed it more, because that was a really pretty kitty. Anywho, let's go ahead and continue on. And this next story is called "Police: East Texas Girls Faked Their Kidnapping That Sparked Amber Alert," and this is courtesy of KETK NBC.
Got new details on Amber Alert for the two missing East Texas girls. We told you about this on Monday. Surveillance video and tips to police now show their reported kidnapping could have been set up and staged. 16-year-old Devaney Betancourt and 17-year-old Marina Nelson were reported missing from a flea market in Seagoville. That's just south of Dallas. They were there with a family friend. Later that night, one of the girls called her mom and claimed she was abducted. That phone call came from a motel in the Dallas area, and that's when the Amber Alert was activated. The Seagoville Police Department got surveillance video of the girls where they were seen with two young boys and did not seem distressed. One of the boys has been identified as this 20-year-old Jose Penaloza Estrada. Police say he rented a motel, a room in Plano, and that's where officers say they found the girls alone and unharmed. Penaloza Estrada has been charged with harboring runaway children.
All right, so if you didn't get that real quick, these two minors, which I'm not going to blow up their face because I'm sure they're minors, told their parents or the adults that they were kidnapped, when in reality they were trying to hook up with this guy who's not a minor, and he got them a hotel, and they were gonna, I guess, quote unquote, hang out, probably is what they told the adults. But when the girls were found, they were alone. So hopefully he didn't get to do anything to them. I hope they're safe. I hope they're at home with their families, and you know, if they need help with anything, I hope somebody attempts to get them the help that they need. If there's something going on at home, why they don't want to be at home, I'm not too sure. But I just thought that was just a really interesting way to manipulate the system, because Amber Alerts are to be taken seriously. And a lot of the times people really are looking out there for, you know, somebody that could be in danger, and this could have led to a way worse situation. Somebody could have recognized them and decided to take the law in their own hands, and they're over here just screwing around. Let's go ahead and continue on. We have 5 more clips, so we're almost done here. The next one is called State Rests Its Case in Nicole Montalvo Murder Trial, and this is courtesy of WKMG News 6 ClickOrlando.
Also developing, the state has rested its case in the trial for the murder of Nicole Montalvo. A father and son are accused of murdering the son's estranged wife.
Today, one of the neighbors of the suspects, as well as a former jailmate, took the stand. They described disturbing conversations they had with the men before Nicole Montalvo's death. News 6's Lauren Cervantes was in the courtroom and has reaction.
Jurors heard from a former jailmate of Christopher Otero Rivera's, testifying that Otero Rivera said he wanted to kill Nicole Montalvo.
Did he ever talk about specific ways to kill her?
I just remember something about a ping pong ball with some fluid in regards to putting it in the gas tank, and that would blow up the car, and something about lime juice to decompose of a dead body.
A former jailmate of Christopher Otero Rivera's took the stand, testifying that Otero Rivera said he wanted to kill Nicole Montalvo.
And based on your conversation with Chris, did you believe that take care of Nicole meant hurt Nicole?
Yes.
The jailmate says he spent about 8 months in jail with Otero Rivera, adding that they were in the same pod. He says Otero Rivera was jealous and possessive of Montalvo.
Did he say why he wanted to kill Nicole?
He felt she was cheating on him, wanted custody of his son, and I believe paperwork from a divorce.
Jurors also heard from a neighbor who says he lives diagonally across from the Rivera's property. The neighbor testifying that Angel Rivera had a concerning conversation with him.
You offered me some money to kill that woman.
And when he offered you the money, do you recall how much money he offered you?
$10,000.
And were you all talking about Christopher's wife when he made this offer?
At the time, yes.
A professor of forensic anthropology also testified today, saying that he helped analyze Montalvo's remains, commenting on what tools could have potentially been used to help dispose of the body. In Osceola County, I'm Lauren Cervantes, getting results, News 6.
That was heartbreaking to hear. I had not heard about that case, but I'm going to go ahead and write her name down because it looks, well, it was called State Rest. So at the same time as the Derek Chauvin trial was happening, this trial was happening. We probably won't cover the whole thing like from beginning to end, but I do want to find out what happened exactly and what they decided to do as far as like the verdict. Let's continue on. We have 4 more clips to go. And this one is called First Case of Hantavirus This Year Identified on Navajo Nation. And this is going to be courtesy of KRQE, and that's out of Albuquerque. So I think that's New Mexico.
The Navajo Nation Department of Health is warning about hantavirus as it receives confirmation of its first case of the year. That case is in McKinley County. The virus is contracted through contact with droppings, urine, and saliva of deer mice. Most contractions happen when someone is cleaning a poorly ventilated area.
Okay, so now the reason I chose this is because this could be the very beginning of the next pandemic, for all I know. It wasn't that long ago when I first started hearing about coronavirus in Wuhan, and I remember in my head when I first found out about it, escalating the situation, and I said, you know what, this is going to affect us. And when I saw this clip, I just thought if they don't have any signs of containing this, this might be the next thing that we're going to have to deal with. And if you don't know what the hantavirus is, the only reason I know what it is because I used to like watching the X-Files. And for anybody that has seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's the episode where they did like a crossover with cops, and the monster was fear at the full moon. So I guess in this area, whenever there's a full moon, fear manifests itself, and it attaches itself to the people that have the most fear. One woman was afraid of like her pimp like beating her up, and then he wasn't even there, but she ended up beat up. One guy was afraid of I think something like a mosquito man or something, and then he had a bunch of bites over him. That's how he died. And then one woman was a coroner, and she was doing an autopsy with Scully on somebody, on one of the victims, and Scully was getting frustrated with her because the lady was clearly afraid because she didn't understand what was going on. So Scully made a sarcastic remark, and she said, well, we're not dealing with the hantavirus. And then the woman, the coroner, was like, who said anything about the hantavirus? And she immediately started bleeding from her nose. Anybody that saw the episode remembers what I'm talking about? And then she died. So I really want to quickly explain what the hantavirus is. I don't know, I want to get into it. So first I looked up the symptoms, and it says early symptoms include fatigue, fever, and muscle aches, especially in the large muscle groups, thighs, hips, back, and sometimes shoulders. These symptoms are universal. There also may be headaches, dizziness, chills, and abdominal problems such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. And it says, how long does it take for it to show? 9 to 33 days. And if you remember what the news clip said, this comes from being close to urine and feces of deer mice. So yeah, that's pretty bad. And from what I understand, it can be contagious. Let me see if it is. Hold on one second. I think we have like 2 more clips to go. It says it cannot be transmitted from one person to another. Oh, okay, so that's one sigh of relief. It says, for example, you cannot get these viruses from touching or kissing a person who has it, or from a healthcare worker who has treated someone with a disease. So if you have it, it's because you were close to the urine and feces of deer mice. It's disgusting. But anyways, let's continue on to the next clip. Actually, I have 3 more to go, and the first one's going to be a little lengthy. If there's any like legal analyst, expert opinion kind of thing, I'll probably skip through that because it's usually the same stuff that they say all the time. But it's called Here's What's Next for Derek Chauvin, and this is from CNN.
The other thing I like about StreamYard is that if there's ever a
I want to read a portion of the initial statement from the Minneapolis Police Department on George Floyd's killing. It's titled, this was the initial statement they made before the videotape was out, before the world had seen what happened. They said it is titled, Man Dies After Medical Incident During Police Interaction. Or Omar Jimenez pointed this out to us earlier today. No mention of a knee on the neck or anything else captured on camera. Instead, there's a bland and untruthful sentence which reads, officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs and noted he appeared to be suffering medical distress. That would have been George Floyd's epitaph if that dishonest account had been the last and not the first word on what happened. Joining us now, 2 senior legal analysts and former federal prosecutors, Brie Barrar and Laura Coates, also Charles Ramsey, CNN law enforcement analyst and former top cop in Philadelphia and D.C. Laura, just in terms of possible jail time, prison time, what is this officer now facing?
Well, you know, the charges are with the highest one. Normally it's 40 years, then 25 years and 10 years. But again, it's a sentencing grid based on his criminal history. You're looking at a presumptive sentence, they call it, of about, I believe, 12 or more years. But again, there's the aggravating factor stage going now, where the judge will now look at the fact that this happened in front of a child, that Floyd was a particularly vulnerable person, and the power dynamic of a police officer doing this to a civilian. And the judge can now take into consideration on that sentencing guideline that has that full range, these aggravating factors to decide whether it should go to the maximum or lower to the minimum mandatory in this instance. And so along that range. So right now, we are a few weeks out from the judge making that decision. And then about 8 weeks out, we're told about the final sentence and what that will be. And in the meantime, there's going to be what's called a pre-sentence report that talks to Derek Chauvin, asks about things like remorse, ways in which to rehabilitate him. He's not going away for life. And so we always have to have a way to have a holistic sentence to re-welcome someone into society. And that begins at this particular stage, even after a conviction.
Were you...
try to imagine Derek Chauvin being welcomed back to society. Where's that going to happen?
Expecting this today?
Well, it depends on when you're asking me. If you asked me a year ago, would I expect in 11 months there to be a guilty verdict on multiple counts, including murder 2, I'm not sure what my reaction would have been. Having then seen the trial, Laura and I were talking about this before we started taping, having had the experience and having seen how powerful the evidence is and the videotape, as you keep talking about correctly, and as the prosecutors kept talking about correctly, it's very strong. And the defense was not very strong. And then when I heard that there was a verdict already, I wasn't expecting a verdict today, frankly. I didn't prepare for it in the various ways that you do if you're in this business.
I thought a verdict would be possible today. I don't know why. I woke up, I checked my phone. I don't think I saw anything about a verdict already being in, although I think they already knew by then that they were ready. And then I went to go do my daily, house duties. And then I was in the middle of something, and then they came back with a verdict, and I had to just stop what I was doing. I came on, we covered it, and waited for news clips to happen because it was just right on time. Yeah, that was really wild. I don't think I'll ever forget where I was when the Derek Chauvin verdict came in.
It was quick. 3 counts, multiple elements for each count, medical testimony that they had to sift through. But when you heard there was a verdict after about 10 hours of deliberation with no intervening questions, didn't seem like there was any argumentative nature between and among the jurors. That to me was a sign that we were going to get guilt on all 3. Of course, you never know because there are unusual verdicts. We've seen it before in big cases and in small cases. I've seen it. We tried a case against Ahmed Gailani, who was responsible for terrorist actions in Africa. He got convicted on 1 count, very powerful case. So you never know. But given all those factors, it was not ultimately a surprise to me because the case was so strong.
Laura, for you, seeing Derek Chauvin out in handcuffs, what was that like?
Well, I juxtapose it to who we also saw let off in handcuffs, and that was George Floyd. And had he been let off with the same level of dignity that Derek Chauvin was afforded as somebody who had the process of a trial, had the due process, then we wouldn't even be here today. And when you think about all it would have taken to not be where we are right now, all it would have taken, the idea of leading a man, not putting him in a prone position, not manipulating his handcuffs, not pressing your knee to his neck, not ignoring the beseeching of trying to get him off the neck, Derek Chauvin would not have been led away today. And I go back to what you talked about at the beginning that Omar Jimenez reached out and talked about. If we didn't have this videotape, there is no doubt in my mind this would have come down to a medical incident. He would remain nameless, and not somebody's name would have been the first thing that the closing began with. Remember, they said his name was George P. Floyd, born October 14, 1973. This began and ended with somebody having the ability to say the name, to be able to be led off with dignity, and that was denied. And we saw what it looks like when you get the opportunity in a court of law.
Chief Ramsey, a statement like that, an initial statement from police, I mean, how does that get written and put out? Like, who decides that?
Well, unfortunately, that's what happens. I mean, what they had was a written report, probably from Chauvin and the other officers that were there. And at the time, that's all they had. And, a good friend of mine, the late John Timoney, used to always say the first story is never going to wind up being the actual story. Facts are going to change. That's why you have investigations. And to put out a statement that strong, as if you have knowledge of what actually occurred, is a mistake, because you wait until you've got an investigation into the matter.
You've obviously spent career in law enforcement, most notably, obviously, in D.C. and Philadelphia. What did you take away from today?
Well, I kind of go back to the prosecution's closing arguments when he said something that really struck me, that this isn't an anti-police trial, it's a pro-police trial. And I think about all the officers, many of which I knew personally, that died in the line of duty, killed in the line of duty, officers that serve every day with honor. And this supports them. It supports what they do every single day. They don't want to see guys like Derek Chauvin in the department.
But you believe the system itself needs to change?
Well, there's no question there needs to be reform. And this is an opportunity. it would be a huge mistake if after this we somehow take a sigh of relief and say, okay, well, things are getting better. No, this is one case, one incident. We still have to continue to push toward reform. But I would argue not just in policing, the entire criminal justice system needs to be reviewed. A comprehensive review of the entire system hasn't been done in decades. And it's time. It's a good place to start with the police, but it shouldn't start and end there. We're just one part of a much larger system.
Do you agree with that? I mean, both of you have a lot of
I mean, I have to paraphrase the late, great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you don't put away the umbrella because you're not getting wet in the rain any longer. You don't stop with the pursuit of justice because you've achieved some modicum of it. And this is a very important day, but you also have to talk about what was underlying this entire case. This Graham v. Connor decision, the whole reason we talk about the reasonableness of force, how we judge the use of force through the lens of a reasonable officer, not by a civilian or anyone else. This is a theory that until now had not been largely tested by a lot of prosecutors who were often afraid to try to be able to overcome that hurdle of saying you give an officer the benefit of the doubt because of the split-second decisions they must make. And because of that, we don't afford them the opportunity. We don't have Monday morning quarterbacks who judge with 20/20 hindsight. But this, as they pointed out, was 9 minutes and 29 seconds, not a split second among them. And so if you're only going to judge every officer involved excessive force case on the premise of a split second and extend the benefit of the doubt, giving them carte blanche, you will never see the change. And you will put away that umbrella and you will get wet in every single downpour.
Do you see, real change coming from this?
I do, because I think the memory of George Floyd in the video is seared in the brains of every American, every right-minded American. And we saw the protests over the last year. But I have a worry, further to what Laura just said, that in this case, the proper verdict was reached, in my view. And you had a guilty verdict on all three counts. And lots of people breathe a sigh of relief. I'm one of those people. But you worry, I think, a little bit on the part of some folks who don't like change, point to that and say, you know what, the system worked. There's one bad apple. The police chief testified against him. The longest serving veteran in that police department testified against him. Look, see, we can deal with bad apples. The way I think about it, now that the trial is over and the suspense is over, is that was really, really, really a strong case. And to judge the success of the system based on the guilty verdicts in this case doesn't seem to be right, even though it is true that it seems justice is not often gotten in cases like this, which is what makes it special. What's weird about the whole system is that this verdict today actually shouldn't seem special, because it was really preordained, in my view, if it was competently prosecuted, and it was, by the facts of the case. It wasn't a split-second decision. It was 9.5 minutes on the neck of George Floyd. So we should take comfort and some relief from the verdict. But I hope it doesn't slow people down in thinking about what the other things are we need to do.
Well, essentially, Chief Ramsey, that's, I think, why what you said is so important, that this is not just, the few bad apples argument that you're making, though obviously the vast majority of police are not like Derek Chauvin in any way, but that the system itself it's bigger than just the police officers.
Yeah, if you see a lot of bad apples laying on the ground, at some point you have to look at the tree. There are systemic issues here that have to be addressed. They won't be fixed overnight. There's no question about that. But there's a ray of hope. The president of the National FOP even made a statement today.
Fraternal Order of Police.
Fraternal Order of Police even came out and said, listen, when we looked at this, we knew it wasn't right. He's had a trial. We agree with the outcome. That by itself, which may seem small to some people, but I've been dealing with unions for a long time. And believe me, I've run into some that never saw a police officer do anything wrong. And it's very difficult to take disciplinary action against a police officer. At some point in time, we've got to work together to rid our ranks of those people who do not belong. I'm proud to have been an officer, a member of law enforcement for as long as I have, a little over 50 years. And I've seen the good in police, but there's a dark side too. And we have to look at that, and we have to figure out how do we correct that? How do we deal with people who just have no business with a badge and a gun?
We fire them, or we don't let them onto the force in the first place. It's pretty crazy. It's starting to seem like the biggest scaredy cats are the ones that are applying to be police officers. Let's continue on. We have 2 more clips to go, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. They're going to be short ones. The next one is called Pittsburgh Criminal Defense Attorney Dives Deeper into Chauvin Verdict, and that's going to be courtesy of CBS Pittsburgh.
Oh, God.
He smells whatever.
Does your face feel dry and sensitive? Rebalance your skin's
So many ads.
The living ecosystem of microorganisms.
Bring in now Pittsburgh criminal defense attorney Bob Del Greco to dive deeper into this Chauvin verdict. Bob, thanks for joining us. What was your reaction when you heard the verdict this evening?
My reaction was, and my reaction always is, that justice occurs when a prosecutor files the appropriate charges that he thinks he can prove, marshals the evidence, that the defendant, in all cases, has a good defense attorney, a zealous defense attorney, that a seasoned jurist makes evidentiary rulings with regard to the law, and that there is a fair and impartial jury who renders a verdict. That's the way our system was designed, and anytime that occurs, those four factors converge, justice occurs.
And Bob, this was a case that saw 3 weeks of testimony, 45 witnesses taking the stand, and you had a jury that deliberated really less than a day and a half, 10 hours total. What kind of message does that send?
I think the message is that I think this jury took more of a macro view versus getting into the minutia, the legalese on matters. And as I've been on record as saying, this case came down to the video. You know, they say, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 1,000 pictures. And so that video was strong evidence, was probative evidence. And I think the case could probably be distilled down to that. And at some point, I'm assuming that jurors determined that they did not need to get into the whole of minutia of what every witness said, what the experts said. This was a common sense verdict rendered expeditiously, in my opinion.
So the most serious charge was second-degree murder, which carries up to 40 years in prison. What are your thoughts about how much of that time Derek Chauvin might actually be sentenced to serve?
Well, it's an interesting question because in Minnesota, the sentences can run concurrently. That is one after another as opposed to consecutive, and that will be in Judge Cahill's discretion. The presumptive sentence for the second-degree murder is 12 and a half years. However, in this case, the government has charged with a couple aggravating factors. One is that George Floyd was treated with particular cruelty, and the other was that a child was present. Recall that 2 of the witnesses that testified were 17 and 1 was 9 years old. Now, Mr. Chauvin waived his right to have a jury consider whether or not those factors are in play. And so Judge Cahill will be charged with the duty of determining if those aggravating factors were proved beyond a reasonable doubt. If they were, the sentence can be substantially enhanced almost to the point of the statutory limit within the second-degree charge is 40 years. With regard to the third-degree murder charge is 25 years, and the manslaughter 10. So depending upon how those aggravating factors are played into this, I would suspect that Derek Chauvin is looking at a substantial sentence.
Bob, thank you so much. Criminal defense attorney Bob Del Greco.
I don't know. I feel like it's a toss-up at this point. I feel like if this whole thing is rigged, like I sometimes think it is, I think they're getting everybody's hopes up with like the verdict that they had today, and then possibly let everybody down with the sentence. I don't know. I have trust issues. I don't like getting my hopes up. So we'll see. And then again, like I said too, there's always a possibility that Derek Chauvin decides to check himself out before that even gets to be, you know, where we're at. But let's go ahead and finish up with the last video, and it's going to be, it was a murder in the full light of day, says Biden. And he did talk longer than this, but I found a video that just kind of chopped up the, you know, the highlights of, you know, his speech there. So we'll watch that, and that's going to be courtesy of Reuters, and then that's going to be it for tonight, everyone.
We get to figure out what a bombshell is, you know, no matter what you think you're.
Today, we feel a sigh of relief. Still, it cannot take away the pain. A measure of justice isn't the same as equal justice. Here's the truth about racial injustice. It is not just a Black America problem or a people of color problem. It is a problem for every American. It is keeping us from fulfilling the promise of liberty and justice for all.
It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. It seems like it took a unique and extraordinary convergence of factors. A brave young woman with a smartphone camera, a crowd that was traumatized witnesses, a murder that lasts almost 10 minutes in broad daylight for ultimately the whole world to see. It feels like it took all of that for the judicial system to deliver a just basic accountability. No one should be above the law. And today's verdict sends that message, but it's not enough. We also need Congress to act. George Floyd was murdered almost a year ago. There's meaningful police reform legislation in his name. Legislation to tackle systemic misconduct in police departments, to restore trust between law enforcement and the people they're entrusted to serve and protect. But it shouldn't take a whole year to get this done. Through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory.
Ultimately, Joe Biden is a politician, and I always have trust issues once a politician starts talking. I feel like a lot of the stuff that he says just kind of fills in the gaps of what everybody wants to hear him say. You know, is it a bad thing that it took a year? I don't think so. I've seen some cases take way longer. There was one child abuse case that Crown Empress covered last year, I think, and that took like 5 years to manifest itself, and this one only took 1. So sometimes it's just kind of difficult to take everything that a politician says seriously, but I mean, he had to say something, right? So that's going to be it for tonight, everyone. I'll try to come back tomorrow with some new news clips, whatever I find interesting that I want to share with you all. Thank you so much for your support and for hitting the like and subscribing and all that good stuff. I will see you all soon. Thank you.